Your birds haven't left your yard. Not yet. They're still in the trees, still moving through the branches, still passing through the same space they've used for weeks, maybe even years. But something may already be changing. And if you know where to look, you can see it long before the feeder goes quiet, long before the mornings feel empty, long before you start wondering where all the birds went. Most people never notice this stage. They only notice the ending, the day they step outside, and realize the yard feels different. The feeder is still full. The bird bath is still clean. The flowers are still blooming. Yet somehow, the birds aren't behaving the way they used to. Chickadees lands, looks around, takes a seed, leaves. A robin arrives, stays for a moment, then disappears into the trees. Nothing seems wrong. And that's exactly why most people miss it. Because the first warning birds give is almost never dramatic. There's no sudden disappearance, no flock abandoning the yard overnight, no obvious sign that something has changed. Instead, it begins with hesitation, tiny moments of hesitation, the kind you would never notice unless you were paying very close attention. Most people assume they know why birds eventually stop visiting. Maybe it's migration. Maybe a predator moved into the area. Maybe they found a better feeder down the street. And all of those things can happen. But surprisingly often, they are not what starts the process. Because before birds reduce their visits, before they stop feeding, before they begin spending more time somewhere else, they start measuring something invisible, something most people never think about. And once you understand what it is, you'll begin seeing your yard through the eyes of a bird. Here's what no one tells you about backyard birds. The food matters, the water matters, the shelter matters. But none of those things matter as much as one hidden factor that birds evaluate every single day. A factor so important that it can completely change how birds behave, even when everything else appears perfect. The feeder can be full. The garden can be beautiful. The weather can be ideal. And yet birds may still begin pulling away. Not because they dislike the yard. Not because they've found something better. Because they've detected something you haven't. What makes this fascinating is that birds often notice it long before humans do. From your perspective, the yard looks exactly the same. From the bird's perspective, it may already be becoming a different place. And the first sign is always the same. The birds become cautious. Not frightened, not absent. Cautious. The question is why? Because the answer has almost nothing to do with food, and everything to do with a hidden calculation happening inside the mind of every bird that visits your yard. A calculation that may already be deciding whether they'll still be there a month from now. That hidden calculation begins with something most people never consider: predictability. For a bird, survival is not about finding the most food. It's about avoiding the wrong mistake. A single mistake can be fatal. A hidden predator, an unexpected movement, a place that suddenly becomes difficult to understand. That's why birds pay extraordinary attention to patterns. Patterns tell them what is safe. Patterns tell them what belongs. Patterns tell them what has changed. And birds are remarkably good at detecting change, much better than most people realize. Imagine walking into your living room tomorrow morning and finding that one piece of furniture has been moved. You would notice it instantly. Birds experience something similar. Only their lives depend on it. Researchers studying bird behavior have discovered that many species constantly compare what they see today with what they remember from yesterday. The location of cover, the movement of branches, the activity of people, the appearance of objects, the sounds of the environment. Everything becomes part of a mental map. And when enough pieces of that map begin to change, birds become more cautious. This is where the first visible warning appears. Not absence, not avoidance, vigilance. A bird lands at your feeder, but instead of feeding immediately, it pauses. Its head moves constantly. It scans the yard, checks the trees, looks toward nearby cover. Then it takes a few seeds and leaves. The visit feels shorter, less relaxed, almost rushed. What you're watching is not fear, it's information gathering. The bird is asking a question: can I still predict what will happen here? And here's the fascinating part. The answer often has nothing to do with actual danger. A yard does not need to become dangerous for birds to change their behavior. It only needs to become uncertain. And uncertainty may be one of the strongest warning signals in the natural world. But this is where the story becomes even more surprising, because birds are not only studying the environment, they're studying each other. And that changes everything, because a single cautious bird can quietly influence dozens of others without making a sound. And once that process begins, the entire yard can start changing in ways most people never notice until it's too late. This is the part most people never see, because the birds aren't just watching your yard, they're watching each other. Imagine a chickadee landing near your feeder. It poses, looks around, leaves sooner than usual. Nothing dramatic happened. No predator appeared. No alarm call was made. And yet nearby birds have just received information. Scientists call this social information. Many bird species learn not only from their own experiences, but from the behavior of other birds around them. A cautious bird can become a warning signal. An uncertain bird can increase uncertainty in the entire group, and it happens silently. One bird hesitates, another notices, then another, then another. The result is a chain reaction that most homeowners never recognize, because from your kitchen window, everything still looks normal. The feeder is full. The garden is beautiful. The birds are still visiting. But confidence is slowly disappearing. And confidence may be one of the most important resources in a bird's world. The less confidence birds have in a location, the less time they're willing to spend exposed there. Less feeding, less resting, less returning. Eventually, the pattern becomes obvious. The morning activity drops. The feeder stays full longer. The yard feels quieter than it used to. What makes this fascinating is that the birds often detected the problem long before humans did. They noticed small inconsistencies, small uncertainties, small changes in predictability, and they responded immediately. Not because they were afraid, not because they were abandoning your yard, because their biology was telling them to pay attention. And that brings us to the most important part of this entire story. Because if uncertainty is what slowly drives birds away, then rebuilding confidence may be far simpler than most people think. The good news is that birds are not looking for perfection. They're looking for reliability. A reliable source of food, reliable shelter, reliable escape routes, reliable patterns. When those things exist, something remarkable begins to happen. Birds relax. Not emotionally, biologically. They spend less time scanning, more time feeding, more time resting, more time returning. One of the easiest ways to encourage this is by providing nearby cover. Shrubs, native plants, small trees, places where birds can retreat quickly if they need to. To a bird, safety is not the absence of danger. It's the presence of options. The second factor is consistency. Birds adapt surprisingly well to human activity when it follows predictable patterns. What creates hesitation is constant change. Feeders moved every few days. Objects appearing and disappearing. Sudden disturbances that make the environment harder to understand. The more predictable your yard becomes, the more confidence birds gain. And confidence is what brings them back. The final ingredient is patience. Perhaps the hardest lesson for anyone who loves watching birds. Trust is rarely built in a day, and it is rarely rebuilt in a day either. Birds gather evidence, visit after visit, morning after morning, quietly deciding whether a place still deserves their confidence. Then, one day, something changes. The visits become longer. The pauses become shorter. The feeding becomes calmer. And almost without warning, the yard begins to feel alive again. What makes this entire story so fascinating is that the birds were never rejecting your yard. They were never punishing you. They were never choosing another place because they liked it more. They were responding to information, following instincts refined over millions of years of survival. The silent warning was never a goodbye. It was communication, a message hidden inside behavior. And once you learn to recognize it, you'll begin seeing every visit differently. Because the birds in your yard are constantly telling you how they experience the world around them. Most people simply don't realize they're listening. Have you ever noticed birds becoming more cautious before they seem to disappear from your yard? Tell us what you've seen in the comments. And if this changed how you think about bird behavior, subscribe and share it with someone who loves birds as much as you do.